For this panel, we're going to discuss the future of exchanges in a Lightning-enabled world. And this is very important because, as Mr. Konstantin here was just reminding me, the exchanges in the current ecosystem are the primary infrastructure providers, bar none, for better or worse. And a massive amount of coins currently sits at the exchanges. I think CoinShares just did a report where they were saying that I think it was up to over 15% of all coins are known to be at exchange, and that's probably a very conservative estimate. I think there's 8% that are just with Coinbase and Zappo. So as we move forward with Lightning and the technology and try to integrate it into the current commercial ecosystem built around Bitcoin, it's going to be very important how the exchanges adopt Lightning, how they utilize the technology, and how quickly that occurs, and who's going to drive that. And so hopefully we can scratch the surface on that in this panel. First, I guess let's introduce everybody. My name is Austin. I work with Kraken, and I have been doing my best to sell as many Bitcoin to as many people for quite a few years now. And
I'm Simon, Head of Corporate Development at Bitstamp.
Hey, I'm Konstantin, Richter, CEO of Blockdaemon. Blockdaemon is an infrastructure as a service provider. We power foundational nodes for up to 20 protocols across a hybrid cloud infrastructure.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Byun. I serve as CEO of OKCoin USA. We are a fiat to token trading platform, and we just expanded into the US, right in San Francisco.
So the first question I think we can address is simply where we stand today. What are your exchanges or your companies, and how you, in Konstantin's case, how you think exchanges may currently be looking at Lightning, and what is what are the plans and potential status of these plans?
Yeah, shall I go first?
Yeah, you go first.
Yeah, so I mean, we're going from a phase this year where we've had, a huge amount of individual user adoption, people spinning up their own nodes, and so when something like an exchange thinks about it, we've got to go from individuals to providing, how do we support that for all our users? And as as pointed out, exchanges are an important part of the infrastructure, given how many users we have and the coins that we custody. So what exchanges need to be doing right now is really being in that active experimentation phase to think about, okay, if you have a big node and there's lots of users connected to it, what are the requirements in terms of security, efficiently balancing the nodes, working capital requirements? I mean, these are things that we just don't really know at scale. And to be able to provide a service where we don't get cheated or do something wrong, we have that responsibility for our users. So we need to be experimenting actively now in that period, and then from there thinking about how do we help users on board with Lightning, and how do we help them use it from a at the moment a very custodial perspective.
Okay, and Konstantin, I know your company counts exchanges among its customer base, providing services surrounding node management. Has there been discussion around plans for Lightning and Lightning channel management?
Yeah, so we have a few. I mean, exchanges are, not easy customers for us, mostly because for custody purposes, they like to have control of the nodes. We've evolved our offering a lot into actually physically managing nodes, meaning we can't actually ever touch them, but we can feel their temperature and we can fix them if they break. The exchange landscape for Lightning, what we've just did is we actually deploy full Bitcoin nodes out of the box, and we've just yesterday actually launched a LND and RTL dashboard integration, so you can actually go to our website, with a credit card, purchase a Bitcoin full node that sits anywhere you want in the cloud, and configure your Lightning channel, have a dashboard, and actually engage in transactions. With exchanges, there's a couple of different exchanges we're talking to who are very Lightning focused. Some exchanges see Lightning as an interesting way in conducting business because you have no counterparty risk in theory. The challenges are just very different, right? So what's great for us as a node provider, the reason why we're so bullish on Lightning is because the complexity of maintaining channel state in a Bitcoin Lightning network is high, and if you don't do it right, you get penalized. And so there's a much more incentive to actually pay for services around it in order to avoid losing funds.
Makes sense. And Tim, the same question?
First of all, we love Bitcoin.
Yeah.
We love the innovation of Lightning Network, but we need to be very careful of what we implement on our exchange. So while we don't have any firm plans, we are looking at it, we're analyzing it. As you mentioned, exchanges, very similar to Bitstamp, Kraken, we need to be very, very careful and prudent about your coins as well as your fiat. And so, we'll take it one step at a time. But it's great to see and hear about new solution providers that are going to really help us progress in this entire ecosystem. But being probably one of the 3 oldest exchanges, it's all about making sure that we can secure and deliver great services to our customers. And so, everyone reads about another exchange going down. And so, fortunately, we've been around for at least since 2013, Bitstamp, Kraken, as well as OKCoin.
Well, thank you, Tim. So the next question we'll get into is about what are the biggest obstacles for exchanges in Lightning. And I mean, so far, if you compare, if you look at flows, there's basically no exchange activity surrounding Lightning today. It's beyond negligible. But we have heard from the CTO of Bitfinex in recent weeks that they're making it a top priority for the end of last half of this year, up to and including building Tether onto Lightning. So that's kind of exciting that we'll see. But as far as my answer to what the biggest hurdle for exchanges and Lightning is, it's something that I don't think we've kind of discussed enough, but it's surrounding liquidity management. It's a very big problem, liquidity management, when it comes to exchanges, because by the nature of your financial flows to exchanges, there's winners and there's losers. People, when you deposit Bitcoin to an exchange, hopefully when you finally make your move to withdraw those Bitcoin, you have more Bitcoin than when you deposited. Now, many people will not, but when it comes to Lightning, we have Lightning is just a network of payment channels, and the coins that are on any particular channel cannot be off-chain moved to another channel. So it's kind of like an abacus, where on one side of the abacus is the exchange, and on the other side are the various counterparts, most likely users, creating a payment channel with the exchange. But once the user hopefully gets very rich and makes 10x their Bitcoin, then what does the liquidity management surrounding withdrawals from exchanges look like? And it's a tough question. The answer is essentially like renting liquidity or various liquidity services, but the model for that is not exactly built out yet. And a lot of kind of as you start thinking about these things and you go down the road, it does look like there will likely be a sub-network of exchanges with very large channels between each other, but there are many people who kind of knock the topology of Lightning, or the projected future topology of Lightning, as being very centralized. But I think we're going to see both. We're going to see centralized elements with a lot of the major infrastructure providers, or this infrastructure routing being somewhat of a centralized subnetwork. What do you guys think about what the biggest
the working capital issue is clearly like a big long-term problem. Is that, like, right now you could run a node with just a few Bitcoin and that would be sufficient. But as it scales, you're going to need like a large amount of Bitcoin like locked up, and how are you going to be compensated for that? I'd say, like, before you get to that point, it is the issue of security and just technical stability. So that's the kind of mantra here, is like, we need to make sure that we're providing reliable service and like securing the coins. So like, as long as it's like, Bitstamp #reckless, doesn't really sound like give a lot of trust to users. So we need to be sure that we're like, actively like testing and making sure that we got to the point where we can, run watchtowers and know that like technically we're going to be broadcasting the right transactions and not making any mistakes. So just like investing in those capabilities is probably like the first thing that we need to make sure that we solve.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating for us as an infrastructure provider to kind of see we started Blockdaemon really to aid decentralization. Like one of the core premises of our hybrid cloud and orchestration tooling is that we dynamically can move nodes from infrastructure to infrastructure based on sort of certain algorithmic indicators. Like, too many nodes are hosted on Amazon East, or, when you look at latency, there aren't in that particular geodispersion, that particular geographic, there aren't enough nodes, for example. So we're very used to, like as a blockchain person, what I find interesting is that we talk a lot about decentralization. We get very critical when projects like Libra come along, for example, but we actually spend very little funds and resources to aid decentralizations ourselves unless we get directly rewarded for it, right? And so every project you talk to, like the Stellars and Ripples, for example, where running a validator isn't rewarded, who assumed that the community would come up and actually do that, people don't do it, it just doesn't happen. And so I find it fascinating that the way we build economical models always move towards centralization. And so, and that's a challenge that we as an industry haven't really yet addressed. And then for Bitcoin Lightning, it's a little different. I think the potential for Bitcoin Lightning is so vast and enormous, but similar like to proof of stake, the large tunnels and liquidity providers will just become more and more powerful, right? And so the challenge in question is how do we offset that and make it easy for people to actually set up channels really easily, do transactions really easily. I think I overheard it, I think being in the back in the previous panel. Right now, it's not beneficial to be a hub in the network. Right? And so we're not rewarding decentralization right now in the Bitcoin Lightning world, right? And so
the question is validating full nodes, not routing hubs.
Yeah, and it's also it's even the percentage of transactions and fees you collect is negligible, right? So it's not worth it. You don't run a hub for any economical benefit unless you're connected to it, meaning hey, I need to accept a lot of Lightning payments. I'm not going to make additional money on it. And so it's going to be interesting to see how we address that economically. And that's why, to your point, exchanges are actually the main provider of infrastructure, because they're the only guys who have an incentive to pay to run nodes because they need to protect custody and performance.
And also, the only way that exchanges are ever going to adopt is if it increases liquidity, if the customers demand it.
Yeah.
And in that regard, you might see even subsidized, on the margin, subsidized routing through exchanges. Tim, do you have a kind of an idea of what you're thinking of as the biggest barrier to entry for exchanges in Lightning?
Yeah, so first of all, I like your example of the abacus, and if I can simplify it even further, it's all about just input and output. And we are a centralized exchange. We are trusted with your coins. And so when you want to withdraw your coins, we need to deliver right away. So you talked about the cost of additional liquidity. As a exchange, there's buyers and sellers on our exchange. So those coins are allotted for the participants, whether a buyer or a seller. The cost of additional liquidity on the Lightning Network, I think we can fulfill that with our corporate liquidity or our corporate source. So I don't think that's an issue. It all comes down to what our customers want and how we can deliver better, great service. And so if we cannot provide the best service, customers are going to go elsewhere. And so as centralized exchanges, it's something that we need to really watch and really think about. If it takes off, we need to be right there to provide that excellent service.
Very good.
Can I ask a controversial question as a non-exchange entity? Which is, do you guys believe that there's reasons for exchanges in the future in the crypto world if you look at planned projects that are like Lightning, actually fairly direct? And we've got a couple of others, right? Libra made announcements. There's a lot of tools getting built where people can actually get onto the crypto landscape and physically pay and transact. So the question is, like, to the future of crypto exchanges, do you think that the business that you're in now will look the same in 5 years?
Well, it will look different, but it'll look different in my opinion, if I can just briefly answer, it'll look different on the margins. I hope for as much decentralized infrastructure for everything, always free the world, free the markets, free the world, but the reality is that centralization is immensely more efficient than decentralization when it comes to exchanges. I mean, it's incomparable, and to the point where it's quite likely that from a price discovery venue architecture discussion, literally the laws of physics mean that decentralized exchanges will always be trailing in price to centralized exchanges, and thus all meaningful price discovery, I believe, is for the forever future of Bitcoin is going to be done on centralized exchanges. Now, there is the potential that these centralized exchanges are kind of offshore, let's say, even anonymous, and you could have perhaps and Lightning may help to make this happen. You can have non-custodial funding and custody while maintaining to the majority of it centralized, being the database and the matching engine infrastructure. But that's my opinion. Yeah, I don't think decentralized exchanges are ever going to be where any meaningful volume is going to be done.
Yeah, I mean, it just gravitates towards centralization just for the same, just market efficiency reasons and easy user experience.
But then isn't something like Libra an easier way to do direct payments than an exchange?
Well,
in terms of payments, then quite possibly, but it depends if people want to use it or Bitcoin already has an installed network. It's not a given that Libra is going to work. People need to still on-ramp it, whereas with Bitcoin we have an existing ecosystem that's getting bigger.
But we'll see how Libra actually works, because in theory, PayPal is a very useful way to get funds onto the exchange, except it doesn't happen at all because PayPal transactions are so restricted and censored that and the fraud risks are basically unaddressed when it comes to depositing on exchanges. So it doesn't happen. Withdrawals a little. Maybe we have 1 minute left, so I guess we have to wrap it up. Obviously, I was going to turn the discussion to the regulatory obstacles facing commercial kind of Lightning infrastructure providers, which are looking to be piling up. But with 30 seconds left, maybe you got a closing remark or two?
Maybe we should discuss that over a bit later. I'm not going to do it in 20 seconds, so sorry.
Well,
anyway, I think we're really experiment with Lightning and seeing how the network develops and trying to support it as much as we can. But yeah.
Well, how about a lightning round of, do you think you need a money transmitter license to run a lightning?
Well, it does look like from the FinCEN ruling, I don't think there's too much wiggle room any longer from FinCEN's perspective that, and hopefully that we can come to that being not the case, because obviously the argument against Bitcoin, Lightning routing nodes being money transmitters are that they never take custody of the funds, right? They simply route and you maintain custody through the time lock contract. But thank you guys for being here. Naomi's great. Much appreciated.
Hovering. Thank you.